The federal government and the opposition have both announced measures to address domestic and sexual violence. The government made its announcement late last night, mere moments before an embargo was due to lift on Labor's pledge. Let's go through both plans, starting with the Morrison government's. A Domestic, Family and Sexual Violence Commission will be established with more than $22 million to be invested over 5 years. Its task to ensure improvements are made under the next national plan to end violence against women and children. The role of the Commission will be to support the government, foster relationships across the sector and ensure greater cooperation between the Commonwealth, states and territories. Here's how the federal opposition's plan compares. Like the government, Labor will appoint a Family, Domestic and Sexual Violence Commissioner to work with the sector to ensure the national plan is on track. Funding will also be provided for 500 new community sector workers to support women in crisis. It means services would be able to employ more people to help women get back on their feet, set up their finances and to help children work through their experiences. Half of those new community sector workers will be located in rural and regional communities. Labor has already promised to invest $100 million in crisis accommodation and build 4,000 homes for vulnerable women and children. Talie Star is a domestic violence worker and advocate, and she joins me now for more. Good afternoon and welcome to you. Advocates and survivors have long been saying more needs to be done in this space. Now the major parties have announced initiatives in the past 24 hours. Are you convinced that regardless of who wins the next election, this is an issue of importance for the federal government?
Oh, it's a vital issue. It is so important that we deal with this and we deal with it well, and we deal with it with the whole sector and all lived experience survivors.
Let's start with the Coalition's announcement. Does the problem of domestic violence require its own commission, complete with research and secretariat staff?
Well, we already have a lot of that going on in the sector. We have ANROs, we have people like Our Watch, we have peak bodies, we have everyone working with governments already. So I'm kind of a bit confused about how a commission's going to make any difference to what's already going on.
We know that this commission will be tasked with meeting the goals of the national plan. That draft is yet to be announced. It is expected to be released within the coming weeks. Perhaps we'll receive more information then. What would you like to see in that plan?
I want to see real prevention in that plan. I want to see real engagement with lived expertise. I want to see proper funding across the board. I want to see actual understanding of housing and how important that is. And also, we need to be thinking about what do people do post all of this. I think we just build up to the point where we help people to a point and then we drop them. And I think we've got so much further that we can go, and how do we rebuild lives after you've left domestic and family violence?
The Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, has tweeted some criticism of the government's announcement. I think we have one of the tweets. I'm going to read another one first. It says, yet another drummed up announcement about a plan to fund a committee of glorified paper pushers tasked with overseeing another plan. Here's a wild idea: invest the money directly in prevention, education, evidence-based intervention programs and existing support services. And it goes on, even if this does come to fruition, all it will do is line the pockets of bureaucrats who don't do anything whilst frontline workers continue struggling to make ends meet. Do you have a level of insight into how much consultation has gone into the Coalition's domestic violence, countering domestic violence strategy?
I'm not sure, because they do say that they consult, but I'm surrounded by people who will constantly say they didn't consult with our group. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect there. I think what Grace is saying is really good in terms of we don't want to just keep reinventing the wheel and reinventing the wheel. We've got to do real practical solutions to move forward. The sector knows what needs to happen, and if we don't act with the sector, then we're not going to get good solutions. And I think there's just too much, let's put somebody in this position, or let's create a summit that doesn't quite go as far as as it needs to. And I think when we keep saying things like that and we keep doing things like that, we are missing the mark. And so what I want to see is real engagement that's already been going on, being put into practice and put into funding and put into empowering people to actually be able to help those they're working with, and to also for the victims of domestic and family violence to feel empowered and their voices to feel heard. I know we've done a little bit with government in trying to establish a lived experience advisory group, and we're still working with that. And I think something like that is a really vital tool basically for the government to go forward.
Let's talk through what we know about Labor's plans in this area. Labor has announced a Domestic Family and Sexual Violence Commissioner. That is a new post, with a commitment to fund 500 extra caseworkers, financial counsellors and child support staff, half of whom will be outside major cities. Is that what you're talking about?
I would feel much more comfortable with that idea. I know in the UK they have a commissioner, and that commissioner is very well received. I've been to webinars where I've heard them speak. They work in a really powerful role to actually work with the whole sector and government. And so for me, that would be a better way forward. The regions just need so much help, and we need to be able to provide targeted help for them and targeted services for them. And I think it just feels like a bit more of a thought-through, holistic approach, in my opinion.
You did criticise the overarching organisation which goes into this area. Labor too has announced a new post of commissioner. Is it needed?
I don't know if I can say if it needs it, but I definitely think it's a better option. I think what needs to happen is that the government needs to listen to what people are saying and actually work on what they're saying and fund what they're saying. I think that's what's missing at the moment. So whoever's in power needs to provide a solution that is real, that is informative, that is engaged with every person that is important in this sector, and hears them and acts on that. I think the problem is we have a disconnection between hearing and acting, and we keep trying to put a new person here and a new person there, or a new commission here or a new body here, rather than going, we've got solutions, let's work together to actually create them.